I'm here with music attorney Randy Ojeda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Living the dream, making the magic happen, you know?
Definitely. You're originally from Tampa, Florida. Can you talk a little bit about your interest in music and how your journey led you to go to law school?
Yeah, so I mean, I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. I actually started playing music when I was in middle school. I started a band and kept playing in bands throughout high school and even into college. And then I was a bass player and kind of, put the bass down for a bit when I went to law school. And when I was in law school, I actually thought I wanted to do, like corporate law or, something like that. But while I was in law school, I started managing an artist who needed help with management and needed, representation and, kind of fit with my skill set. So I started managing an artist that led to managing another artist and another artist and another artist. And the next thing I know, I'm a manager. So started a management company actually, and when I finished law school, instead of going straight into law and taking the bar exam and doing all that, I just focused fully on management. And I did artist management for years. I, eventually did A&R for a company called Symphonic Distribution. I wore a bunch of different hats in the industry, ran a record label, did just a whole ton of music industry stuff. And then it was actually the pandemic happened, and suddenly, my calendar went from being very, very full to very, very empty, as it was for most people during the pandemic. And I decided if I was ever going to shift back to law, the pandemic was a great time to do it. I didn't have anything else to do. Might as well study for the bar. So I studied, took the bar, passed the bar, and started my law firm from there and just kind of merged, my music history with my legal background and became a music lawyer.
That's incredible. You talked about being an independent musician yourself. I was wondering was there any situations that you saw with artists either being as management or pursuing a career as an indie artist that pushed you into the career where you wanted to help artists and protect them?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot in law school, and also just, yeah, seeing situations where artists were getting taken advantage of, and things weren't quite fair for the artists. And the labels and the bigger companies, they have their legal teams, like they have people on board, to navigate them through the industry, whereas independent artists don't have that. There's not a lot of attorneys that focus on music first off, and then even the ones that do focus on music tend to only work with the bigger name artists, and the Taylor Swifts and the Drakes of the world. They're not working with independent, I call them like the middle class of music. These people that are, maybe you still have a day job, you're doing music on the side, it's your side hustle, but it's your passion, and you're doing well enough that you need some representation, but you might not be doing music full time yet, or you might not be, breaking the bank with your Spotify royalties yet, but you still need to protect yourself.
Most definitely. What would you say are the most common pitfalls you've seen artists make?
Honestly, the most common thing I see is that artists um they don't make collaboration agreements. Like you work with another artist or a producer, or you have a feature on a song or something like that. You really need an agreement between each other about ownership of the song and what percentages each person gets, and how all that is gonna work. Without that, it becomes just a free for all of who owns what rights. And people have very different expectations on what it means to collaborate. So I think the most common thing is just not getting collaboration agreements when you should. I always say anytime that you work with anybody in the industry, you should have an agreement.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. how can like the music industry like be more fair for artists? It seems like it's built on like a lot of exploitation, like the labels specifically like benefited for years. It seemed like it's changing because of the internet and the ability for artists and stuff to kind of go the independent route.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's much easier to be independent now than it ever was. The now you don't necessarily need a label to get your music out to people. You can just get it out yourself. You can use, a DistroKid or some distribution company and get your music to all the platforms without having to work with a label and give up your royalties. So there's definitely an incentive for artists to stay independent and grow their fan base on their own. But I also think that there's a place for labels and good labels that are willing to work with artists and kind of grind them through the machine in a good way, you know. Um, but I think the industry, it historically has been exploitative of artists, and I think going forward, I think artists are starting to gain more power and gain more leverage and negotiating room because you're able to build a fan base on your own. And I think that's, that's great advice that I can give to any up and coming musician is do your thing, build what you're building, and if you can build an audience on your own, then when the labels come calling, then that's when you can have a good negotiation and you can leverage your success into a better, more favorable artist friendly deal.
Most definitely. I see the Loyola University law degree on the wall. Like,
Yeah.
that's incredible accomplishment. It's like one of the best law schools in the country. What was the experience like going to Loyola?
Oh, it was great. I mean, well, law school's not great, you know. Law school's not fun. It's a lot of work. It's very stressful. It was a very stressful time for sure, but Loyola was definitely one of the, a great school to go to. There was a lot of great opportunities. They had, really good programs. Shout out to my music law professor, Dahlia Saper, who taught me a lot about, what I do now. And yeah, it was definitely a great experience, and I loved Chicago. I was born and raised here in Tampa, Florida. Went to Chicago to go to school, lived there for about 5 years, and
Uh,
loved every minute of it. Hated the cold. So
right
so
from
my
Tampa,
wife,
that's a big change.
yeah, it's a big change. I actually saw snow for the first time when I was in law school. So you could tell it was definitely a big change for me. But my wife and I wanted to be closer to family and in a warmer climate, so we moved back to Florida and been here ever since.
Most definitely. Artificial intelligence, like, is wreaking havoc on the music industry. You saw like Drake, like, during his beef with Kendrick, he released like, the Tupac, Snoop Dogg AI track. He eventually took it down off the DSP sites because of the request of the Shakur's estate. What are your thoughts about AI?
Man, AI it's definitely the next frontier of music and music law. And I think, the rules are kind of still being written with AI, so it's hard to say, it's hard to advise people on AI and its use and how it's used. But, I know some of the major labels are suing AI companies now. And, I think there's going to be a lot of litigation and a lot of regulations about what you can do and can't do with AI. But I think it can be used as a really valuable tool, like in the studio. Even like there's programs now where you can run a song through AI and tell it to remove the background vocals or remove the bass line or remove this guitar melody, and it'll do that for you and allow you to kind of manipulate songs in a way that we weren't able to do pre-AI, So there's definitely some benefits to AI, and I think it's a useful tool, but that's all it is it's a tool. It's not, it shouldn't replace creativity. It shouldn't replace art. It shouldn't replace, you know, musicians and their artistry. So when I see people, making like an Eminem song out of AI and it sounds just like Eminem, it's crazy, but it's I guess it's the future. It's where we're going. So we'll see how things shake up.
Most definitely. What has been like, one of the best parts of being a music lawyer?
I would say it's that I have great clients, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, the law is the law. You know, I'm essentially a contract attorney, so I do contracts and negotiation of deals, you know, just like any other transactional attorney would do, but instead of working for, you know, a bank or an insurance company, I'm working with talented, creative individuals and artists and producers and singers and all sorts of content creators. So it's my clients are always interesting and the work ends up being a little bit more fun than your typical legal job.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to, aspiring artists like, who are, maybe just starting out, like you in their career, trying to upload songs like to DSPs, maybe even like making like, songs off of, like YouTube beats, like it was pretty common in rap.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, for new artists, hone your craft, and spend some time working on the craft of whether it's, rapping or singing or production or songwriting, whatever it is that you're working on, spend some time building that before you really start collaborating and getting out into the scene. And yeah, you can put a song or two out on DSPs, but I think that there's definitely something to be said about working and building on what you're doing behind the scenes, and then when the time comes and you're ready, then you drop it and you've got a lot more experience at that point. So I'd say don't rush it. Don't rush into releasing music. Don't rush into putting stuff out on DSPs. Um, keep it to yourself for a little while and keep growing and building, and then when the time's right, then drop. You know.
That makes a lot of sense. Were there any books like, along the way? Like I think about like, the Donald S. Passman All About the Music Business book. I think that's the most famous like music business book for independent artists. Were there any books you read or you would suggest that was imperative for artists to read?
Yeah, definitely the Passman book, All You Need to Know About the Music Business. That's if I ever taught a course, on music law or on the music industry, that would be my textbook. I think that's like a very clear guide for what you should do in the industry. There's also the Ari Herstand book. I think it's All You Need to Know About the New Music Business, something like that. Ari Herstand's an artist manager and consultant, and he wrote a great book about kind of the state of the industry now. Um, there's also a great book called Music, Money, and Success. Um, I can't remember the authors off the top of my head, but it's another great book that goes into specifics about where the money goes and how you get paid and how producers get paid and how artists get paid, how labels get paid. So that's a really helpful book to read through too. But if you can only pick one, I would say definitely go for the Donald Passman book, All You Need to Know About the Music Business. I mean, that is the book. You're gonna learn so much from it, and you know if you have questions, come back to me, reach out. I'll answer some questions on it.
I wanted to get your thoughts on like, some current legal news. Verizon, they're facing music piracy lawsuit from major labels. They basically like are being accused of billions of dollars of damages, because Verizon allegedly refused to crack down on piracy. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know too much about that specific suit, but it's amazing to me that in a day where, you know, for $15 a month or whatever, you can have access to all the music in the world at your fingertips, that people would still pirate music, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, if that's happening and Verizon's not cracking down on it, then I understand where the labels are coming from. I think already music and art has been kind of devalued because it's $15 a month for all the music in the world. So I think you know to pirate something that people have been working on for however many hours, however many years. I used to be a big music piracy guy, like before, back in the day. I downloaded tons of music and torrented tons of stuff, and it was because I was so hungry for music. But at the time, the only way you could get music was buying CDs, and I couldn't afford to buy a $20 CD for every CD that I wanted to listen to. So I think things are a little bit different now, and it just it is what it is, you know.
Recently, the Beastie Boys they sued Chili's for using sabotage in
Yeah.
advertisement without permission, and like that brings up the thought, like I think about like independent filmmakers, like using songs, like you have to have the license for to be able to use a song, and like what happened in the Beastie Boys case, the company because they don't allow their work to be used for songs or to be licensed. How do artists navigate that landscape?
Yeah, I mean, sync licensing, which is what you're talking about, sync licensing being, act literally synchronizing the music with the video so that, comes into play with TV shows, movies, commercials, that sort of thing. It's a great money maker for artists, and it's a great way to get your music out there. I mean, how many songs have you learned about because it was a good drop in a TV show or, it was on in a commercial that you hear over and over again, you recognize the song. So, um, yeah, it sucks, if your music gets used without, compensation or without your consent. So, I would say for artists to stay on top of it and, um, just be willing to make sync deals, be willing to make deals with companies and potentially get an agent, a sync agent, somebody that can help you place your music in those spaces, and then you know the deal will come before the use theoretically. I mean, it's a very strange case that they used the Beastie Boys without their permission. I think most companies are pretty smart about we need to license this and we need to get the proper licenses and the proper documentation in order to use music. So yeah, that's crazy to me that happened.
Definitely. Spotify, they basically made the decision to stop paying artists who don't make 1,000 streams yearly. And that's not really surprising, like, but there's a lot of people who argue, people like, benefit, from those small artists being on the platform and
Yeah.
they can be paid regardless. You have any thoughts about that? Like, I know you talked about representing the middlemen, not exactly the big. What about the smaller people?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated issue because on the one hand, I want all artists to get paid for their efforts and their work, but at the same time, like, other platforms like say YouTube, if you're on YouTube and you put up a couple videos or whatever, like you can't monetize your channel until you get a certain amount of subscribers, or you have a certain amount of views or view time. I forget how they measure it,
Yeah.
and then you can actually start monetizing and making money off of it. And, I wonder if maybe it makes sense for music to be somewhat similar where, you know, if you're putting stuff out, you're just putting it out, and then if you hit certain thresholds, then you start getting money. And if it leads to more money for that middle class musician, then I'm all for it. And I think that's the logic behind um, Spotify's move is to, hopefully redistribute more money to, and this is hopeful. I know Spotify's bad, so maybe this isn't what they're thinking, but my logic is that, if that money, I mean, if you have less than 1,000 streams, I mean, you're not even making like $1 or $2 off of your music. So is that going to the middle class of musicians might be the better move long term for the industry. So it kind of makes sense. I know it's a bummer for a lot of artists that are under the threshold and aren't going to get paid, but you know, a thousand streams isn't that high of a burden. Like I think if you put time and effort into promoting your stuff, like you can hit that, you know.
I wanted to get your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts about private equity firms and them investing in music? Sometimes, like, there's artists you've sold like their catalogs of music to them for hundreds of millions of dollars. Barry Manilow, Bob Dylan, Stevie Nicks.
Yeah. No, it's a big thing in the industry, and I'm always weary about non-music companies controlling music. So that part of it worries me, but at the same time, like, if you're an artist and, you're you're almost out of the game or you're ready to retire or whatever it is, and you can get a bag for your music, I mean, more power to you, man. Like get that money while you can. It's just, I would feel better if it were music companies buying up the catalog versus private equity firms, or I don't like seeing music as like a commodity like stocks. I'd rather it be treated like the art form that it is. So yeah.
The SAG strike happened last year, and a lot of people were talking about, musicians unions and the importance of them. And there already is like, musician unions, but everyone doesn't necessarily have access to join. But like, what are your thoughts about like those unions? And do you feel like, they're helpful to artists?
Yeah, I would love to see a national musicians union, something that, because you are alluding to like there are, some smaller unions and musician groups and collectives at like regional and local levels, which is great. But I would like to see I think it'd be amazing if there was more of a national musicians network. I just think it's going to be really tough to organize. I think just because the barrier for entry for music to be able to create music and release it is like I talked about earlier, anybody can do it. You don't need a label, you don't need permission from anybody to release music, you can just do it. So I think because so many people are involved in the industry and want to be part of it, I think it's going to be hard to actually mobilize some kind of union out of it. But I think it'd be cool if somebody can make it happen, because there's definitely a lot of issues that, musicians should be um more in agreement about. I mean, royalty rates, streaming rates, there's a lot of advocacy that could happen for musicians, and it's not happening right now because there's no organization.
What are your thoughts about like, just living in the age of digital distribution? When I was growing up, obviously we would go to the store, buy CDs. I don't know how old you are, but like now
Yeah.
everything is digital.
Right. Yeah. It's cool and it's not cool. Like I said, it's cool that I have, you know, the world's music collection at my fingertips, and I can on demand listen to anything that I want. But I definitely miss the days of going to the record store, or even going to Best Buy and buying, some CDs, and putting it in my car and listening to it for the first time like that. That was always a fun experience. And I love vinyl records. I love cassettes even. And I think, it's more niche now, but I definitely think that there's a market for physical copies of music. And I think people are still collecting and people are still buying stuff. So, it's a great way to support artists. An artist makes a lot more money selling a CD or a vinyl record than they do off of a stream. So, you know, if there is an artist that you've been listening to a lot and you really like what they do, buy their record. That's one of the best ways to support them. Buy their merch too. You know, but yeah, I mean, we're in the digital streaming age, and who knows what's going to come next.
Most definitely. What music are you listening to? Any artists in your playlist right now that you
Oh man, let me see. Let me pull it up. I'm always listening to a lot of stuff. Let's see. Right now, I've been listening to uh wow. Hold on. There's a lot of stuff I gotta scroll through. Um, let's see, like on the hip hop side, I've been listening to this group Angry Black Men from Chicago. They're super dope. They're playing Pitchfork Fest this weekend. And listening to a lot of Kalen Ellis, great, multi-instrumentalist artist there. Um, been listening to Rhapsody. Her new record is fantastic. Really cool stuff there. Like on the rock side, I've been listening to Ben Stellar, which is a band out of New York that's doing really well. Um, Another band called This Is Lorelei, and their other project, Water from Your Eyes. Peel Dream Magazine is about to drop a new record that I'm really into. Um, yeah, I mean, just so much stuff. I mean, I listen to all genres. I listen to hip hop. I listen to rock, I listen to, jazz and funk and, all sorts of things. And that's one of the reasons why I do love streaming, is that it allows me to kind of jump from genre to genre without, without any issues. So yeah, I'm listening to a lot of stuff, and I do have a playlist on both Apple Music and Spotify. If you just search Randy Ojeda Law on either of those platforms, you'll find my playlist, and it has tons of music that I'm listening to, music from clients, music that I've been working on, and just music that I enjoy. So if you want to check that out, yeah, just search Randy Ojeda Law on the streaming platforms.
That's incredible, Randy. One last question. TikTok, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of artists have benefited from the platform, is potentially going to be facing a ban. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think TikTok's been, in many ways revolutionary for the industry. Like I've worked with artists that have gotten major label deals just from a TikTok sound going viral, and that's great for them, obviously, and great for um, emerging artists. So, I think it'd be a shame if TikTok gets banned and we lose that access, because for me, like, I don't really use TikTok to discover music, but like my niece does, and like her friends do, and like the younger generation, like, I tell her about an artist and she's pulling it up on TikTok. She's not going to Spotify, she's not going to Apple Music, she's just going to TikTok and finding music that way. And if that's the way the next generation interacts with music, then I'd hate for it to go away, because obviously we want a new generation of music listeners to be involved in the scene, and to promote the acts that they uh find favorable.
Definitely. Randy, where can people reach out to you on social media, get you like for speaking engagements?
Yeah, I'm at Real Randy Ojeda, RealRandyOjeda on all the platforms. So, I'm on everything. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on X, I'm on Threads, I'm on all the things at Real Randy Ojeda. So please follow me, shoot me a message. I'm way more accessible than I probably should be. So just feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions, always happy to talk. And I do offer a free 15-minute consultation for artists, and people looking for, to talk to a music lawyer and kind of see, what I might be able to do with them, what kind of work we can do. So, take me up on that too. You can do that at my website, randyojeda.law.com. You just click on book a consultation and book a free 15 minutes with me, and we can chat about anything you want. If you want to just chat about like wrestling and video games and sports cards, I can do that too. You know.
Randy, man, I appreciate you for taking the time.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'd love to have you back.
Anytime. Say the word.